Hello and welcome to Full Tech Ahead. I'm your host, Amanda Razani, and I'm so excited today to bring on Kelly Burroughs. She is the Director of Strategy and Market Development for iBwave. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Amanda. Great to be here. Hi to everyone listening.
Yes. Can you share with our audience a little bit about your background and then what does iBwave do?
Yeah, sure. I have a fairly extensive career background, everything from business analysis to project management, marketing, product development, and now I'm focused kind of on the strategy side and market development. I've been with iBwave for about 10 years now in various different roles. And iBwave is essentially a software company, and we are used by RF engineers to design wireless networks all over the world. So, it's funny, before I kind of came into iBwave, I didn't realize the complexity it took to actually receive a signal on my phone when I was inside of a building or like at a sporting event or, underground in the metro. And the amount of kind of planning and thought and expertise that needs to go into delivering those signals. Um, it's been fairly eye-opening. So iBwave is used, if you think the large telecom companies across the world, Verizon, Bell's, AT&T's, all of these kind of companies are using us specifically for the indoor piece and campus type of environments, and of course their ecosystem of partners. So that's essentially what iBwave does.
Awesome. Yeah, I think so many of us take that for granted. So I'm excited to have this
Exactly.
conversation with you today.
Yeah. Yeah, we're the invisible layer.
Yes. And so we're going to talk about what it takes to deploy a wireless network and some of the things that are overlooked when it comes to the foundation as far as surveying and design. So, can you share from your experience what are some of those issues that tend to get overlooked?
I mean, it's it's really you have to take in the consideration of the whole environment that you're designing, right? So depending on, what kind of a building that you're actually designing for. For example, a wide open office space is a much different environment to design for than a factory floor that has a lot of metal objects on it. And it's different because of how the RF signals will act in those environments. It will go through a cubicle wall much easier than it'll go through like a metal shelf that's full of boxes that are full of books, for example. The RF signal will not go through. And so it really depends on what type of environment. So I'll say environment itself really needs to be considered when you're designing these networks. And so that's why it's important you go on site and you kind of do what we call a survey, right? A survey is you have a scanner, you can go on site and you have a floor plan and you're walking the floor and you're understanding what is the performance of the network today, kind of where are the dead spots, where are there performance issues, or, where is it performing really well. But you're also taking in the physical environment of the building. What are the walls made of? Where can we put kind of the radios? It's surprising how aesthetics can actually play into the design of a network. Because if you're in a hotel, the owners of them don't really want you just putting a radio anywhere. So you need to consider where you're actually going to put them, what it's going to look like if you're in a type of public setting. But essentially, you're really surveying both the existing kind of performance of the network as well as the physical attributes, because all of that is going to impact kind of where you put your radios, where you put your equipment, where you run your cabling, where you can run your cabling, and how the network will perform. So certainly the survey piece is a really important part to capture all of that information about an environment, not just kind of bits and pieces. You want as holistic and full and complete picture of the environment you're designing for from the beginning, I would say. And then, when you move to the design side, the first step really is to, in our software, you model the building. So you can import your AutoCAD file and you're literally creating a 3D model of this building, the brick on the outside. You want to model the shelves inside of a warehouse or where the cubicle walls instead of an office, or maybe you're doing an outdoor and an indoor and you want to model some of the parking lot because you have autonomous trucks that rely on the wireless network and you want to make sure that you're considering or an underground kind of parking garage. So you really want to model it, and we always say the more accurate you can model the environment, the more accurate you are going to be in simulating how your network will perform because it does have such a big impact. So sometimes that can be overlooked or not as much time is kind of put into the modeling of that. And of course, if you don't do that and you go through all the steps to then design the network and then you simulate it and okay, it looks okay, but you didn't model something right. The reality is when you go to turn that network on after you've installed it, it's not going to perform as you need to. And that's going to lead to downtime, which can get very expensive in something like a factory or warehouse is going to impact operations. So we say, the design is very critical to enabling the business to use the applications that it wants to use, especially in like, I would say today's world where they're deploying AI and a lot of automation. You think about the robots in a warehouse, it's those stop working for 10 minutes and it can get pretty expensive, honestly, for a business. So this is why it's so important to take the time to do the design accurately and properly in the beginning stages, for sure.
I'm so happy we're having this interview today because it just shows the full circle. I recently had an interview about autonomous trucks, and of course,
Okay,
I've had lots of drone interviews. And
sure.
when you bring the full circle, all the different companies and all the different technologies that are involved for all of this to work, just doing that
It's a lot.
360 view.
Yeah, yeah, it's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of different pieces that need to come together to make it work, both from not just kind of the hardware piece, but also teams of people,
Mhm.
right? It's a real effort, I would say, to bring it all together to make what looks like very smooth operations once it's up and running, actually running. You say it's like a duck. It looks very calm going
Mhm.
across the water, but underneath, it's they're working their little legs to all make it work, and it's fairly chaotic. So
Yeah, so it
yeah.
sounds there's a lot involved in deploying wireless networks. And you touched on a little bit, but what are some of those long-term consequences for companies if it's not done right?
Yeah, well, I mean, the most obvious one is you're going to get in a situation where you're going to spend a lot of time troubleshooting, and troubleshooting takes resources, right? So if you're, let's say you've deployed a wireless network to support these robots in a warehouse and they go down, you're immediately going to have to troubleshoot, and that's not always easy depending on what kind of in-house expertise you have or you don't have, right? So then you're going to have to wait, maybe to do the troubleshooting, and then if you didn't actually design it, you're going to have to pull out some of the hardware that you deployed and you're going to move things around and have to recable. So it gets expensive both from a time perspective as well as a cost perspective. And the other thing is, in this day and age where like the wireless environment inside of an enterprise or a lot of these companies, it's moving very quickly. They start kind of with a small use case to deploy AI, let's see, or automation, but it's proving out kind of an ROI, and then they want to be able to scale in other applications. So if you don't set a solid foundation kind of from the beginning to have a reliable wireless network, scaling up your use of technology, which is going to help give you kind of operational efficiencies, um, and better kind of production, then you're going to find it difficult to do. It's really important to get that foundation so that you're able to scale quickly and as you want to, right? As the opportunity comes up. So I would say those are kind of the two big ones that kind of mind. You want to position yourself and put yourself in a place to win, right? Both from an operational efficiency, time and cost savings perspective, but also in the future.
There are a lot
Yeah.
of interesting new tools and technologies available now. What are some of those, like for example, AI, but I know there's more than AI. Can you share some of those that are helping in this
Yeah.
process?
In the helping in the like the design and survey process,
Yes.
or like that's driving them. I mean, we're looking at AI in our software to accelerate the efficiency of simulation. So when you get into really kind of complex type of buildings, like let's take a stadium, you model the stadium but to actually simulate the RF performance, it can take a very long time to actually run those simulations and show what it's going to look like. So we're focused on, can we kind of use AI to speed up that process? And also, how can we become kind of more proactive in suggesting design recommendations or tweaks to the network before it becomes an issue? So I think that's kind of where we're focused and looking at using kind of I would say AI, newer technologies. It's how do we still deliver the value that we deliver as a software company, but how can we do that more efficiently? How can we make it more automated for our customers to do it quicker? The sooner they finish their projects, sooner they can kind of move on to the next, right? So,
Yeah, I know
yeah.
timeline is important, I'm sure. Is From your experience, what are some of the hiccups that business leaders face as far as meeting that timeline? And what advice do you have?
I think, well, it depends on what kind of network. Honestly, if we're talking about deploying Wi-Fi inside of an office, I feel like this goes pretty smoothly. You can get a design and installation up and running. When you look at more something like a private network right now, which is, I would say the enterprise this is fairly new technology to them, right? Figuring out, should we use it? Where should we use it? What will we get from it? So I'll say, I don't know if it's a hiccup, but there's a lot of thought being put into it. It can be a barrier, a little bit of a barrier or friction. Let's call it friction in getting the technology kind of up and running. And it's valid, right? Because it's a learning process. So I think in the world of where there's a lot of different technologies to use within the enterprise, it's figuring out where do I use what so that it's going to give me the most value for our investment because it won't be just one technology. You're going to still use Wi-Fi to support kind of your admin and offices, but maybe you want to layer in kind of a private 5G network for those autonomous trucks in the parking lot, right? Or in your warehouse floor because it has a little bit more reliability. It's better for the outdoors. So there's different reasons to use different technologies. And so being able to kind of plan those out, I know that's a little bit of a friction and something that I would say is being learned today. Um, it's our job to help kind of help them visualize that as well, right? How do we help kind of the enterprises or those wanting these networks to understand if they deploy this type of a network, here's what they're going to get out of it, and how it will benefit them. So, did I answer your question? I
Yeah,
think so.
absolutely. And
Okay.
looking toward the future, as we know, all this technology is evolving so quickly. Right now we have 5G, but it's just all evolving so quickly. So, my next question would be, how do companies design a network that's going to evolve as the technology evolves?
Yeah, I think the applications drive the technology. And today, when you look at kind of 5G, it's a pretty solid technology that most applications will be supported by. I don't think there's anything out there right now that would demand kind of a higher technology. And of course, the next evolution is 6G, but I would anticipate that we're pretty far out from kind of seeing that in real life being implemented into or being needed, quite frankly. You'll see a lot of 5G networks being deployed with the use of AI because it needs the bandwidth, it needs the low latency that technology specifically really delivers in order, to get the full value out of it. So I think if, you're an enterprise, you want to think, what technologies do we need in our business and specifically the mission critical technologies, right? That they're really depending on that have an impact on their business, on their production, on their efficiencies. That would drive a decision around what technology to use. And if you're using 5G, you're probably good. You're good for a little bit. I think the trick is balancing though. You don't want to overkill either, right? It's again goes back. You want to make sure you're picking the right technology for the right application. You don't need 5G to support necessarily everyday office administration. So you don't want to be overspending. You want to make sure you're going to get your return on investment no matter what technology.
Awesome.
Hmm.
Well, if there was one key takeaway you could leave our audience today with, what would that be?
I think the one key takeaway is really like don't forget about the design piece. As we talked about in the beginning, we all use these networks everywhere we go. You go onto a subway or metro underground and your phone is working, or you're in a stadium full of people and you're able to send kind of a video to your friend to say, check out the game, or here I am at the concert. And we kind of take it for granted about what kind of sits behind making that happen. So again, I would say, design is absolutely critical to making sure there are still reliable and dependable networks in a world that is very quickly evolving in terms of wireless technologies, right? The applications available to us as people in our everyday lives on our phones, and then also from an enterprise, all of the applications becoming available to them with AI to make them more efficient, and better at what they do and deliver.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your insights with our audience today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
And thank you to our listeners. Share what was the most interesting to you and comment with any questions you may have. And until the next podcast, have a wonderful day.